It is dark. The world is still. No one is watching. And yet, in this silence, the war begins. A war not of violence, but of choice. Not between armies, but between the voice that wants to grow and the one that wants to wait. This is the 5 a.m. decision. Not a time, a threshold, a line so thin it can pass unnoticed, a battle so quiet it never echoes. And yet, it is here, in this unseen hour, that greatness is born. Not because waking early is magic, but because it is a decision that demands everything average despises. Discipline, intention, sovereignty, and above all, sacrifice. To rise when it is easier to rest. To move when the body says no. To begin when the world still sleeps. That is not about a schedule. That is about self. You see, every day, a version of you is waiting to be born. Stronger, sharper, focused. But that version does not emerge by accident. It must be chosen, over and over again, in the dark. And the first choice of the day, the quietest, the loneliest, is also the most powerful. It is not about what happens at 5 a.m. It's about who you become because of what happens at 5 a.m. The bed is warm. The room is cold. No one will know what you choose. No one will clap. No one will care. But you will. And that's enough. Because you're not rising for applause. You are rising for purpose. Ask yourself, what if the most important battle you'll ever fight is the one between the sheets and the sky? What if the alarm clock is not an interruption, but an invitation to greatness? And what if every time you win that battle, you don't just start your day, you start becoming who you were meant to be? In every philosophy worth living by, there lies a quiet reverence for self-mastery. The Stoics spoke of it. The sages of the East practiced it. And in their silence, they taught a truth often lost in noise. That greatness begins not with power, but with restraint. To rise early is not merely to wake. It is to govern oneself. To take the reins before the world tries to steer you. It is a declaration. I will meet the day on my terms. Before the chaos, before the demands, before the noise, I choose to become. Waking at 5 a.m. is not a productivity hack. It is not for hustle. It is not for others. It is a daily ritual of stepping into order over chaos, of facing the void, the silence, and filling it not with distractions, but with intention. Philosophically, the morning is sacred. It is the purest moment, unshaped by the world. No obligations, no emails, no opinions, just you and your will. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, reminded himself that rising was part of his nature, that to seek rest over responsibility was to turn away from his reason. He did not wake to achieve. He woke to align with who he was meant to be. In the same way, when you rise before the world rises, you're not proving something to others. You're proving something to yourself. This is the hour where you don't chase greatness. You sit with it. You become familiar with the silence that most run from. And in that silence, you learn the language of inner command. Psychologically, this is not small. When you take control of the first decision of your day, you plant a seed of autonomy, a seed of dignity, a seed of discipline. And day by day, that seed becomes character. You are not what you do once. You are what you consistently choose when no one is watching. 5 a.m. becomes less about the hour and more about the honor of your own promise. Every sunrise is a mirror. It reflects what you believe about your future. Will you meet it with resistance, or will you meet it with reverence? Because the morning isn't just early, it is essential. It is the only time untouched by the demands of others. And what you do with that time shapes who you are when they arrive. There's a war that begins the moment your alarm sounds. It is not loud, it is not violent, but it is relentless. A subtle battle between two voices. One calls you back into warmth. The other calls you forward into greatness. One is comfort. The other is conviction. And here's the truth most avoid. You will become the voice you obey. Comfort is persuasive. It speaks in a soft, convincing whisper. You need more sleep. You'll start tomorrow. It's just one day. But comfort never arrives alone. It brings with it delay, doubt, and eventually defeat. Conviction, on the other hand, does not plead. It does not soothe. It simply reminds you, you made a promise. You promised to change. You promised to rise. You promised to become something more than average. And now that promise is being tested. Psychologically, the mind is wired to avoid discomfort. It seeks the path of least resistance. But every time you follow that path, you reinforce weakness. You teach your brain that escape is easier than effort, that mediocrity is acceptable if it feels good in the moment. But when you choose conviction, when you choose to rise despite the pull of ease, you begin to rewire yourself. You create a different pattern, one that favors integrity over indulgence. This is the crucible where character is formed. Comfort is the enemy of destiny, because destiny requires discomfort, sacrifice, and action, and none of those come wrapped in warmth or convenience. Look deeper. That bed is not just a bed. It's a symbol, a daily test. Every time you choose to stay, you are practicing hesitation. Every time you choose to rise, you are practicing courage. Conviction does not need a crowd. It does not need applause. It just needs decision. And in this battle, your future is not being built by grand gestures. It is being built by small choices that feel insignificant, but over time become who you are. So ask yourself, who do you want to be when no one is looking? Because that's exactly what the 5 a.m. decision demands. A life of excellence does not come from extraordinary moments. It comes from choosing conviction when comfort would be easier. Again, and again, and again. The moment you rise at 5 a.m., something shifts. Not just in your schedule, but in your mind. You send a signal, loud and clear. I am in control. That decision, the first of the day, becomes a compass for all others. It creates what psychologists call preloading willpower. The first disciplined act reinforces a chain of action, priming your brain for further success. It's not about what you do at 5 a.m. It's about what you unlock for the next 16 hours. Because here's the psychological truth. Your brain craves consistency. And whatever tone you set early in the day, it seeks to repeat. If you begin with power, you're more likely to sustain it. If you begin with surrender, you're more likely to coast. The most powerful part? You are training your identity. Each early rise is not just about productivity. It's a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Self-trust isn't built in theory. It's built in behavior. When you do what you say you will do, especially when it's hard, you begin to believe yourself. This belief becomes momentum, not the kind you feel in a single burst, but the kind that compounds over time. You wake early, you act early, you focus better, you walk differently, because your subconscious has been told, we are becoming something strong. It's not motivation, it's identity momentum. The quiet force that makes future choices easier, because your past choices align with them. Discipline repeated becomes preference. What once felt like effort becomes the new normal. That 5 a.m. rise, it stops feeling like a punishment. It begins to feel like freedom. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from reaction. Freedom from the old version of you that waited, hesitated, doubted. Momentum is not magic. It's the logical result of consistent beginnings. So the next time you consider rolling over, remember this. You are not choosing a moment. You are choosing a trajectory. Every strong decision builds speed, and speed builds power. And power, when aligned with purpose, becomes unstoppable. So do not underestimate that early choice. It is not small. It is not trivial. It is the first domino. And what you set in motion will carry you further than you ever imagined. You don't wake up early because you're successful. You wake up early to become someone who is. That's the secret most people miss. It's not about having the life first. It's about behaving like the person who could build that life before anyone sees it, before you even see it yourself. Because at 5 a.m., you are rehearsing identity. You are casting a vote, not for what you want, but for who you are. And here's the philosophical truth. Identity is not found, it is forged. Every day, through choices, through discipline, through action that echoes who you wish to become. We often ask, what do I want out of life? But the better question is, who must I become to deserve that life? Excellence isn't the finish line. It's a lens. It's a way of being, a standard that governs how you do everything. Even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. The world tells you to wait until you feel inspired, until the circumstances are right, until motivation strikes. But the 5 a.m. decision does not rely on emotion. It's built on integrity. And integrity is identity in motion. You're not just rising to win a morning. You're rising to break away from who you were yesterday, from procrastination, from inconsistency, from the version of yourself that kept waiting. And each time you rise, you widen the distance between who you used to be and who you are becoming. Psychologically, this is transformative. Your brain responds to patterns, and repeated action tells the subconscious, this is who I am now. You stop needing to talk about your goals because your behavior speaks louder than your words ever could. And in time, others notice the change, not because you announce it, but because you embody it. Your posture changes, your pace changes. Your eyes look different because they are focused not on what is, but on what could be. And what could be is only possible when you commit to becoming more than just average. This is the identity shift. You no longer settle for reacting. You choose to create. You no longer chase comfort. You train for excellence. And you no longer live from wishful thinking. You live from daily alignment with the future you've committed to. You don't need permission to become extraordinary. You need consistency. You need conviction. You need the decision over and over again when the world is still asleep. Because that's when identity is written, not in loud declarations, but in quiet, relentless choices. Time is the only currency you can never earn more of. Every moment is spent. The only question is, on what? At 5 a.m., time is different. It is untouched. It is sacred. It is time that belongs only to you. No messages, no demands, no noise, just you and your power to decide what your time will become. You see, most people live in reaction. They wake when they're told. They move when they're pushed. They answer to urgency, not importance. But the ones who rise early intentionally, they claim time before the world steals it. They own it. This is not about cramming more into your day. It's about protecting what is essential. Time to think, time to grow, time to work on the things that matter, not just the things that shout the loudest. Psychologically, your early hours are your peak focus hours. The mind is clearest. The body is rested. Your attention isn't yet fractured by the day's distractions. And what you do in this space defines the tone of everything that follows. Philosophically, the early hours are a symbol of reverence. To rise while others sleep is not arrogance. It is devotion. Devotion to your craft. Devotion to your calling. Devotion to becoming someone worthy of the life you dream about. If you treat time as sacred, it becomes sacred. If you treat it like spare change, it disappears. Waking up early is a discipline of saying, I will not let life happen to me. I will shape it one quiet hour at a time. This is the hour where you read what others will never open, where you write what others postpone, where you plan with clarity, where you sharpen your mind, center your spirit, align your goals. You stop surviving time and start sculpting it, because time is not just a measurement, it is an offering. And how you spend your earliest hours is how you train the rest of your day to serve you or slip away. So protect your mornings like a sacred temple, not with perfection, but with purpose. The world does not reward the busiest. It rewards the most aligned. And alignment is found not in the rush, but in the quiet, early hours where clarity meets commitment. Let's put this plainly. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline is foundational. Motivation waits for a feeling. Discipline creates results regardless of feeling. And at 5 a.m., this truth becomes crystal clear. Because in that moment, when the alarm sounds, motivation is nowhere to be found. You are tired. You are warm. You are tempted. And in that moment, the question is not, do I feel like it? The question is, what kind of person am I becoming? That's the power of discipline. It doesn't wait for desire. It acts from decision. Psychologically, this is a game changer. Your brain learns not to depend on external cues, but internal values. You train yourself to become independent of mood. It's not about being robotic. It's about being resilient. Discipline says, I do what must be done because it aligns with who I've chosen to be. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, this kind of discipline is forged in the fire of repetition. Small, repeated actions over time. Not once, not twice, but again and again until it becomes natural. You don't rise early because it's easy. You rise because it makes you ready. Ready to lead when others follow. Ready to act when others wait. Ready to show up, sharpened, prepared, deliberate. Motivation comes and goes like the weather, but discipline builds climates. It changes the environment of your life. And 5 a.m. is the proving ground for that change. This isn't about punishing yourself. It's about forming yourself. There's dignity in discipline. There's freedom in structure. There is self-respect in doing the thing you said you'd do, even when no one else sees it. When you build discipline in the dark, you carry strength into the light. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you act from discipline, the more motivation starts to show up, not before the act, but after it. Not because you felt like it, but because you're becoming someone worth feeling proud of. So, don't chase motivation. It's a shadow. Build discipline. It's a foundation. At 5 a.m., you're not just waking up early. You're waking up into a new standard, a new self. And that self does not wait for permission. That self does not negotiate with comfort. That self rises with purpose and moves with power. There's a gravity to the average life. It pulls at you. It whispers, just this once. It encourages delay. It rewards conformity. And it punishes excellence, not openly, but with indifference. To rise at 5 a.m. is to defy that gravity. To rise is to say, I will not live by default. I will live by design. The average person waits for the perfect time, waits for inspiration, waits for someone else to believe in them. But the one who rises early, they stop waiting. They start becoming. Psychologically, the average life is built on micro-compromises. Sleeping in just a little, pushing the goal just a little, letting today slide just this once. But over time, just this once becomes a lifestyle, and comfort becomes a cage. Living beyond the average means choosing discomfort on purpose, not for the sake of struggle, but for the strength it builds. It means showing up before it's convenient. It means keeping promises others forget they made. It means acting without applause, without urgency, without pressure, because you've trained yourself to do what's right, not what's easy. This is how the uncommon are made, in quiet decisions that separate them, inch by inch from the herd. No shortcuts, no secrets, just a decision, day after day, to live above the line, above excuse, above hesitation, above the mediocrity the world has normalized. Philosophically, to live beyond average is to accept that excellence is lonely, and that's what makes it sacred. Not everyone will understand your early hours. Not everyone will praise your consistency. And they don't have to, because this path is not about being seen. It's about seeing yourself more clearly each day, seeing the person who's capable of more, and choosing to meet them. When you rise at 5 a.m., you rise into possibility. You rise above the noise. You rise beyond the average. And slowly, your life becomes a reflection of that choice. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped living like everyone else? What would change if you aligned your days with your highest potential? Because that's the invitation. To trade a life of drifting for a life of deliberate, disciplined power. You weren't born to be average. You were born to be awake. There is no parade when you wake at 5 a.m. No crowd, no recognition, no instant reward. Just silence, just you, and a decision that echoes louder than any applause ever could. Because in that quiet, you are rewriting your future. This life, the 5 a.m. life, isn't glamorous. It isn't loud. It's not built for display. It's built for depth. You'll find something rare in those hours. A kind of peace that reveals your priorities. A kind of solitude that sharpens your soul. A kind of stillness that asks you one question. Who are you choosing to become? And the answer is not given in words. It's given in what you do next, in how you rise, in how you carry yourself, in how you approach the day before the world has even opened its eyes. This is the secret power few will ever discover. That success is not a moment. It's a rhythm, a cadence of small, aligned decisions that form a life of greatness, quietly, steadily, undeniably. Psychology will call it identity reinforcement. Philosophy will call it character formation. You can simply call it a new way to live, because that's what this is. Not a habit, not a trend, but a return to the original strength inside you, the one that doesn't need validation, the one that doesn't fear effort, the one that knows if you can win the morning, you can shape the day. And if you can shape the day, you can sculpt the life. So here we are, another morning, another choice, another 5 a.m., no fanfare, no spotlight, just you and the decision that defines everything. Will you rise? Because winners, they're not made in the spotlight. They're made in the silence, when no one's watching, when the world still sleeps. They're made at 5 a.m. If today's message stirred something in you, if it reminded you of the strength you've buried or the future you've delayed, then don't just listen, decide. Decide who you will be when the rest of the world is asleep. Decide to rise, to build, to become. And if this podcast helps you walk that path, if it fuels your pursuit of greatness, discipline, integrity, and the life you were born to lead, then I ask you to do one simple thing. Subscribe, not just to this channel, but to the standard we've talked about today, because this is more than a podcast. It's a community of early risers, of focused minds, of people rewriting the script of their lives, one morning at a time. So share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment if it moved you. And remember, greatness doesn't happen later. It begins when you do. I'll see you at 5 a.m.